What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Ponce'S Point. Winter is here, and so is the Women's March. Today we're going to see how toxic masculinity is affecting society, and maybe I'll learn a few dance moves.
Bro, we're on. Let's go.
All right, let's go. I heard you saying the Trump anti-gay go away. So what do you think? Well, what's the most negative thing Trump has done for the women of the United States?
Oh my gosh, where do you begin? I think he totally disrespects women in power. I think he sees women as sex objects. I think he has very little regard for women in power. And what I'm thinking specifically of is the way he's been treating Speaker Pelosi. Those are my thoughts on that subject.
What about the way he's been treating Schumer? Schumer's a man. You can argue that he's been treating both of them, with some sort of disrespect. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would agree with that too.
What does that mean?
You don't know?
Yeah, it's his real name. You don't know
That's his grandfather changed his name. Who was here without papers and opened a brothel.
So no comments? You don't want to make any comments? Nothing on it?
I can't.
He just recently passed the We Act, which is to empower women economically. What about those? Do you think those are steps that he's trying to improve women's lives, or do you think that's still not enough?
I don't agree that he's had more women in government. I don't.
He hasn't hired the most women out of all the presidents?
No, I don't think that's true.
And so what we saw in 2016 and 2018 was a huge step. More women in office than ever before. But I think everyone is here because we know this is just the beginning, right? We need to get more and more involved in our democracy so that every single person is represented. And I'm proud of what our country has done, and I hope we continue it in 2020 and beyond.
Okay. So you wouldn't say Trump is purposely hindering women, because if he has more women in office, he's kind of letting that happen. He's accepting that.
Well,
he wants that.
I would say that it was in part a response to him and the sexism in 2016 that got a lot of women to get involved. And the potential first woman president, we could tell for the first time women are getting held to a different standard when it comes to politics. Many of us knew that per se, but it was much more obvious when it's a presidential candidate versus another presidential candidate, right?
I don't think that's true.
And what about the anti-gay? What about in that aspect?
Oh my gosh. He is a native New Yorker, and he was never anti-gay. Now that he has this so-called base that he believes is anti-gay, he's anti-gay. So I think he's just pandering. He's pandering to his base, and I don't really know if he has any true core beliefs.
By base, you mean like people that support him? Do you think that they're anti-gay?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Can I be honest with you? I support him because he's a president, but I'm not anti-gay. I have gay friends.
I'm glad to hear that. So
what do you think? Would you say that's like a false bias, maybe, that most of his supporters are anti-gay? Because I don't see any proof that could be true. Because Clinton wasn't for same-sex marriage until 2013 or so. The funny thing is, I actually interviewed these guys right over here, the revolutionary communists, maybe a month or two ago, and they're not my biggest fan. They don't really like me. Too bad in communist countries, females suffer the most, so that doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't really make sense, right?
It doesn't.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
Voting for women will not change the nature of this system. You have to overthrow this system. You do not end the oppression of women by putting a few female faces on the top. You end this oppression by overthrowing this system, by making an actual revolution, and that's what we're getting organized for here today. Listen up, sisters and brothers. You came out here because you are anguished and angry, and you are right to be angry. But you are being played if you think that a women's wave is going to end this horror for women, for immigrants, for black people, for the people of Yemen and the people of the world. Only an actual revolution can put an end to this nightmare.
All right. Excuse me, can I ask you a few questions about your group?
Who are you?
I'm Steven from Ponce'S Point, an independent journalism company. So I wanted to ask you guys are saying how no interviews? How are you guys not going to do interviews? No one's going to know what you guys are talking about. There we go. No interviews. Didn't expect anything better.
It's a country that was based on slavery and genocide. That's right. America was never great. America was never great. And this wealth in this country, they don't want to tell you where it comes
revolution?
overseeing that shit.
Cuba,
The one we can construct when we make revolution.
Venezuela,
We don't need a
The one we can construct after a revolution.
after. What about the revolution that we've seen? What about those? I think America's the best country. Look at us. We're able to protest.
If you love slavery, if you love police getting away with murdering black people, if you love children being torn from their parents' arms at the border, then you should love America. Because that's what America is. That's what America has always been. And if you could take your head out of your ass, you would recognize that.
But what about abortions? Are we not caring about babies and not kids?
So for the people who aren't chanting, I want you to tell me when was America great?
The military, I would certainly call that anti-LGBT.
So what do you think they should do then in terms of the LGBT in the military? Do you think that they should have them seek help first, psychologists, or maybe go through a transition first and then join the military? What do you think should?
Well, you're implying that they need help, implying that there's something wrong with them. I don't accept that assumption.
Saw your sign from far. I just wanted to ask you about it.
Sure.
So what do you mean by white genocide now? What are you trying to say?
It's literally self-explanatory. Like, it speaks for itself.
Okay, so do you think like white people should not be in the U.S.? Should we be deported? What do you think?
I think that white people are responsible for all the bad in the world, and we should smash white supremacy. I gotta go.
Okay. He's a white guy. He said that white people are to blame for all the bad stuff in the world. So again, doesn't make sense. That's a little hypocritical. Offense like this. Steel slabs, beautiful. Excuse me, can I ask you about your sign? You want to talk a little bit about your sign? All right. Now, this one right here. All right, so it says what?
Shed walls, don't build them.
All right, what do we mean by that?
Kind of like combining women's reproductive rights with like fuck the wall. Fuck the wall? Fuck the wall.
But most women are getting raped at the wall, right? Because there's like very little border security at the wall. So if you build the wall, that'll decrease women getting raped and getting killed and human trafficked.
I think
it's kind of contradicting a little bit.
No, I think there's a lot of rape that happens in other places besides the wall.
Go back where you belong, in jail.
I don't think he ever went to jail.
He ever went to jail.
It's trash.
All right.
It's trash.
We're starting.
Your government's shut down and just fucking stupid.
Wait, what about the dog? The dog's got to say something. You want to say something? There you go. There you go. Like 60% or 80% of the women that cross the border, right, are raped.
Yeah,
that's pretty bad.
There's like an underground economy in Mexico of people that like capture women who are trying to cross.
You're 100% right.
And sell them into human trafficking or sell their organs, and it's terrible.
So my argument for the wall is, since I am pro-women, I think if we build the wall, it will definitely defend women from getting raped at the wall. Because if there's no wall, it will definitely deter, any type of business. Because who's going to cross over?
There's other ways to cross. I think if people are coming across, they're going to cross anyway. They're escaping terrible things, and we can't change that by building a wall. We need to help what's going on in their country.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you're able to deter it, slow it down, decrease it, and narrow down the channel of legal immigration and where negativity could come from, where bad stuff in the United States can come from, then if you have two doors open, you close one, it's easier to manage one door than two. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's just how I see it.
Oh, I got to ask you about this one. All right, I would have had a bigger problem if you put Takis.
Oh, no,
all right?
No.
Cheetos I could deal with, but Takis, come on. Nothing's better than Takis.
Except, the purple bag is not that great. I will say it's the red. It's the one with the lime.
Yeah, that's the chili lime one, right?
Yeah, the chili one. That's the best one.
Which is the best one?
It's the red one. The fire hot ones. All right. Yeah, those are the best.
So if you were to make Donald Trump a chip, right? He would be definitely a Cheeto.
He definitely be he is a Cheeto.
A plain Cheeto or a hot Cheeto?
Not. He's not even close enough to be spicy.
What about?
Those are the good kind.
What about when he gets mad though?
Okay, then maybe, yeah.
All right, thanks. All right.
Women are coming.
Can you explain a little bit about the sign?
Did you hear about CES this year? Wait, I don't want to. What am I on right now?
It's just a YouTube channel.
Oh, okay, cool. So CES 2019, they this year wouldn't allow a vibrator into the convention because they said that it was obscene and like didn't fit their guidelines. But in the past, they've had VR porn, like literal sex robots. So.
Damn, my hands are freezing. Should have brought gloves.
You didn't bring gloves, bro?
No. It's okay, I'll handle it. I'll just switch hands.
Do you mind if I talk to you about the sign?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so what does your sign mean?
So my best friend Miriam, we were here last year at the march, so this is a picture we took. So she has a feminist art company, and so she drew it for me and printed it out. She can't be here today, but I'm like carrying her with me.
So maybe she's born with it, maybe it's none of your business. What does that mean? Like maybe she's born with what?
A vagina, and it's just like, don't tell me what to do, and I'm going to live my life and like stay in your lane, man. And just like our policies and just like let women live their life.
Is that more like a hit on like society? Like it's none of your business whether I have one or not? Or
it's just kind of like, let me do me. And like, I mean, you can interpret whatever you want, but for me, it's just like, let me and like my fellow sisters just live our truth.
Yeah, leave our vaginas alone.
Yeah, just like, you don't know what it's like, so like, let me have it and stay in your lane.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Do you still believe that there's fascism in the U.S. and that it's hurting women? In what situations would you say for the viewers of the video that where there's fascism and it's directly hurting the women of the United States?
Well, you have to sort of understand what fascism is, that it's ingrained with the way that people live within capitalism. And you look at the future, what it means to grow old as a woman in this society, you won't even be able to feed your cats.
What is this for?
To get rid of Kavanaugh.
Isn't he elected already?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you know what? He can't pass the polygraph. You know, the DNC needs to offer him $5 million to his favorite charity to take and pass the FBI polygraph.
Has he taken the polygraph test? No. That's what you guys want.
Senator Kamala Harris asked him. His answer was, if the committee wants me to, if his 11 buddies on the committee want him to, in other words, he can't pass it. They need to advertise this every news hour, morning and evening, every major newspaper, so that everybody in the country knows about the offer.
And what do you think the biggest disparity in the U.S. for women is?
Being women.
Do you think it's really a huge negative thing to be a woman in the U.S., or do you think that it's just like a bias that the media portrays? And
I think if you compare what women's lives are here to in any Western social democracy, they have more crumbs than we do.
Can you name me one other country where it would be better to be a woman than the United States?
A better country?
Just any country where it would be better to be a woman than the United States. Any other country than the U.S. Where would you rather?
It really depends what you mean by better.
We need to get the talk of mid-America. What, Kavanaugh can't take $5 million from the Democrats and give it to hungry children? Well, he's lying. I don't like the guy anymore. It needs to be, his answer needs to be advertised. Yes, no, or ignore. No.
Did you like Kavanaugh before?
Huh?
Did you like Kavanaugh before?
No.
Well, when it comes to 75 cents a dollar, I'm only playing devil's advocate here, so bear with me because I'm trying to have some sort of civil discourse, about ideas. So, I've done some research on the difference in the pay gap, right? And what I see is that most men go into STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and so on, right? And they're more likely to move for work. They're more likely to work outside in dangerous conditions, and women aren't. And those jobs pay more. So would you say that it's a pay gap for equal job for equal?
I will tell you that my best friend who went to Barnard, who's a doctor, who's on faculty of a very prestigious medical school, she's had to fight for everything there. So that for the conditions for women in science, the lack of mentoring that they receive, I mean, this is, we are on the cusp of great cultural change because the generation that has come up is looking at the world and saying, oh my God, the revolution has not been finished.
I watched the hearing and he called Professor Ford an innocent victim. The woman that accused him of sexual assault, the innocent victim, blamed the Democrats.
What about the 7 FBI investigations that they couldn't come out with any corroborative evidence?
That's baloney. They didn't let us see it, did they? They didn't let us see any of that. The trouble is, she passed the polygraph, he dodged it. His own testimony convicted him. I mean, this is a judge. This isn't some stupid jerk off the street. He called Professor Ford an innocent victim and blamed the Democrats. She's the woman that accused him of sexual assault. She's the reason he's on the stand and the hearing today, you know?
So what do you think Kavanaugh's going to do that's going to negatively impact women?
What this is going to do? I think it's going to put tremendous pressure on him.
No, what do you think he's going to do as Supreme Court Justice that's going to negatively impact women? Because he even said, he stated in several articles that he's not going to touch like women's rights when it comes to like abortions and birth control.
This guy is you look at it, he's very belligerent. He looks like the type of guy that's going to explode. He looks like the type of guy that would be in a bar fight, you know?
So I don't personally think that President Trump is too enthusiastic about women being in office. Most malicious comments tend to be towards women. But his movement isn't just about anti-Trump, right? We want to see conservatives and liberals who are women taking a larger role in our democracy.
Okay. And what about the pro-life, pro-choice? So are you against pro-life? Do you think that abortion should be done like no matter what? What's your take on it?
So I am pro-choice, but I also am very empathetic to people that are pro-life, right? There's a lot of, they feel very passionately about it. They're trying to protect the potential of life. That makes sense to me. But at the end of the day, I do think that people need to have the choice to determine what they want to do themselves. And especially because in many cases, women go on to have kids later, 10 years later, when they're in a position to actually be able to have, be a good mother, have the resources to be able to raise a child more effectively.
Agreed. So I've done some research and I saw some stats throughout the years, right? And I would say on average, 90% of the abortions are done on other. That means that are non-emergency. They're just kind of like an inconvenience, right? So 90% of abortions done every year, practically on average, right? Let's get like a 5-year time span. 90% of them are abortions that are are unnecessary. It's not, like I said, they're not emergencies, right? Like 3% of it is rape. Other ones are like the mother's life is in danger, the baby's life is in danger. So would you say that a lot of people are using abortions as a safety net? Even though I'm pro-life and pro-choice. I'm pro-choice in certain things, pro-life in certain things.
I can understand this. So I have to say I'm just a little bit suspicious of the stats only because I have many good friends who have taken that action, or not many, but some, right? And in some cases it is because of rape, but they would never tell a statistician that. They would never tell someone interviewed, only the very closest people in their life. So I think we have no way to know what the true numbers are, right? Because this is often dealing with some of the most personal and vulnerable moments of someone's life. Now, that being said, I much prefer we do things like birth control, right? So I would prefer fund
100%.
birth control, make it more accessible. That's the best way to reduce abortions, but ultimately I do still believe that people should have that choice, even if I still recognize there's a cost when an abortion is done.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time. What's your name?
Thank you so much, Logan. It's a pleasure.
Logan. Yeah, Stephen, Ponce'S Point, welcome. Logan, guys, Logan. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, man.
This guy, it's just, obviously I believe Professor Ford. If Kavanaugh had taken the polygraph in the beginning and passed it, I would have figured that she was lying, and she was one of the very few that could take a polygraph and lie and pass it. But no, he dodged it constantly.
To be fair, the polygraph is easily manipulated. No. You can easily manipulate the polygraph you can ask.
Very few people, when done by an expert, very few people can do that. Very few. It's very accurate.
Thank you for.
I've seen on the Justice Network, the real NCIS, not the Mark Harmon TV, the real. I've seen them use the polygraph and catch murderers. It's very accurate.
All right, thank you for your time. What's your name?
Kirk Wilcox. It's on the bottom.
Kirk Wilcox. Thank you, Kirk.
That takes skill.
Kick ass.
What do you think about the government shutdown?
I think it's some bullshit. That's what it is. People aren't getting paid like they should be. People are, left home, not getting paid, having to do the work for free. What is that?
I mean, they are going to get back pay from Donald Trump. He signed on that.
They are, but some people live paycheck to paycheck. What about those people? They just get screwed because Donald Trump wants to build a wall?
Don't you think the wall is important?
No, I don't.
I
don't think it's a good idea. Like,
look, here's the thing.
What is a wall really going to do? Like, hypothetically, he's trying to say that it's going to protect our borders, but we already have a lot of border protection. We do. We have.
Not necessarily.
We do, and I don't think a wall is really the solution for it. That's my opinion. And I don't think you should shut down the government just because
they can come to an agreement.
Yeah, they can come to an agreement. Like, that's ridiculous.
Here's the thing, though.
People are suffering.
But women are getting hurt the most at the border. They get raped when they cross over. A lot of them are human trafficked, sex trafficked. Don't you think if we put a border, we would put a...
A lot of that is racist rhetoric. A lot of it...
Wait, what do you mean? That's literally numbers coming from Border Patrol itself, and women who work in Border Patrol.
For him to imply that there's some type of migrant caravan that's coming to attack us.
He didn't imply it. That was actual news, covered by all news stations. There was actual footage of it. It was funded and everything.
He says a lot of lies, and that's one of them.
But it wasn't from him. It was from, like, CNN, MSNBC. They called it the caravan. It was coming.
No.
Coyotes, they kidnap women and sell children and...
But so this is a new issue?
No, that's been going on for years. Drug trafficking too, drug smuggling through the border, southern border.
All that happens, and that's why we have Border Patrol and security.
And maybe a wall, a wall would help.
I don't think a wall would help.
There's fences around communities. We have a
realistic solution for it.
We have a fence around us. They kept us, from crossing. Like walls work.
No.
Prisons work. The walls keep them in.
Prisons work. Don't even get me started on the industrial prison complex.
All right. Well, let's not talk about industrial prisons. Where would you say that, or how would you say that women aren't free in the United States?
Free? I think there's a lot of ways. I think first off with in terms of with wages, I think that the glass ceiling is very ever present. Women are very underrepresented in STEM fields, and so I think that with underrepresentation of women in certain fields, it makes it harder for them to go up a ladder in a way. Also, gender roles are really imposed on women, so women feel this need to act and look a certain way to be taken seriously, and that harms just the way we see our self-image and the way we appear to society.
Back to the topic back to the point where you said about STEM fields, right? So you're 100% right. There's less women in STEM fields than men, but the thing is that STEM fields, right, they pay more, they're higher paying jobs, and there's more men in it. So when you talk about the gender wage gap, if you're comparing men and the careers that they choose compared to women and the careers that they choose, which is more in hospitality, humanities, and so on, they're generally less paying jobs. So when you compare apples to apples, you're going to find a difference. So would you say that the U.S. is discriminating against women, or is it more just on career choice? Because women naturally intend to go to certain fields compared to men.
You're saying naturally, but gender is a social construct. It's not natural. This happened all in the 40s and 50s. Women were choosing, after they were forced to be housewives, the only jobs they could be were admin assistants, were receptionists, were hospitality things. That's all they could get. So it was not natural. It actually happened through the formation of society in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that got us here. Had women been told they could be good at math, good at science, be a congresswoman, they would have done that in the 60s. But
do you think that they were telling boys, listen, you can be good at math and good at science? Because they would, in the classrooms I grew up in, it was the same all around.
Constantly reinforced that they can do those things far more in ways that you wouldn't even realize. It's extremely socialized, so it's normal. You can consider it normal how boys are told they can do this. Boys will be boys. Boys can do anything. But you never hear that about girls. Girls are way more told exactly what to do and how to do something.
I mean, beyond just being socialized, it's also within history, within law, we've also been excluded from a lot of things. Women weren't allowed to vote, for example, even after black men got the right to vote before white women did, which shows a lot in that our country's had a really, really deep-rooted history of racism, and even still... So
sexism is worse than the racism in the U.S., right?
It's not comparable. It's comparing apples to oranges. It's two completely different
women's rights are intersectional. Women's rights are intersectional. There's black women, there's white women, there's Latino women. So I think you can't say racism versus women's rights because they go hand in hand in a lot of ways.
And beyond that, I'm just saying, legally, we were put behind as second-class citizens to the rest of the population, so we didn't have access to a lot of jobs, a lot of education. Right. A lot of women weren't allowed until the 1970s, married women, to even have their own credit card without their husband's consent. Which is, we are still playing a catch-up game, and in terms of entering, for example, STEM fields, it's not even just the overall professional fields. It's within each field, women are generally paid less still, even for doing the same work as men. And it's not that we're not doing as well. It's not that we're not as smart. It's just that because women are women, they're being paid less overall.
Okay. And you think, what your friend was saying about the social construct, do you think that it's being reinforced so much as to that women are just in mass amounts choosing totally completely different career paths than men, that it's come to it's almost like an epidemic where
that's the problem. You keep saying choosing.
But everybody has the same equality of options. You know, equal choice, equal opportunity.
That's wrong. We don't all have the same equality of options. That's like,
Women actually perform better in schools than men do.
yeah, nowadays that women do have higher education, graduation levels. That's just because we're hard workers.
There's more men in prisons too. Would you want equality in that?
Mass incarceration is a different topic, and
It mostly targets men. Men are more in jails than women, 100%.
Women also they have less violent tendencies.
Right. So naturally, men, it's not socially constructed. Men are usually more aggressive and commit more crimes.
That has to do with that has to do with traits. Sex and gender are different. Those are different topics. So like that's
and the whole industrial prison system is like a completely different social justice topic.
But then, wouldn't you say that there's kind of some sort of sexism to men when it comes to the prison system?
No, that's racial sexism. It's a whole different topic.
Come on, let's try to be kind of fair. Yeah,
we're talking about professionalism, and that doesn't have anything to do with the prison system. Okay.
And when all right, so
don't think this is going anywhere, but thank you.
Okay, guys. All right. Well, thanks for talking. All right, guys, and that's it for today's episode of Ponce's Point. That was a Women's March. See you next time. Don't forget to support me on Patreon. You can support me on Patreon. I accept Cashapp, PayPal, whatever you want. Anything that helps. Thank you.